I once found my roommate's tooth in my cereal box, and that was only the beginning of his bizarre collection habits. He was an anthropology student, claiming he collected specimens for his studies, but his room increasingly resembled a forgotten mausoleum filled with jars of what looked suspiciously like animal organs, mummified insects, and even a dried human finger he swore was an antique medical anomaly. The stench began to permeate the entire apartment, a cloying mix of formaldehyde and something undeniably organic decay, seeping under his door and clinging to our furniture. One evening, I heard faint scratching noises from his room, persistent and unsettling, like something trying to claw its way out of a confined space, only to find him staring blankly at a taxidermied squirrel with vacant glass eyes.
My paranoia peaked when I realized my personal belongings, small sentimental items, would occasionally disappear from my dresser, only to reappear days later, slightly moved or worse, subtly altered, as if someone had meticulously studied them. I began locking my door, even when I was just stepping out for 5 minutes, the air thick with an unspoken dread that he wasn't just collecting things, but observing them, or perhaps us. Moving out felt like escaping a living museum of morbid curiosities. But sometimes, even now, I wonder what new specimen he might have added to his horrifying collection. I still get shivers thinking about it.
My roommate, let's call him Mark, had this unnerving habit of always knowing where I'd been, even when I hadn't told anyone. It started subtly, like him commenting on a coffee shop I'd visited across town, or a specific bookstore I'd browsed, details I hadn't shared, brushing it off as coincidence or a good guess. The real horror began when I discovered small, almost imperceptible scuff marks on my bedroom windowsill, too high for casual wear and only visible from the outside, hinting at a presence scaling the wall near my fire escape. I started noticing things around my room being slightly out of place. A book moved a fraction of an inch, my jewelry box lid not perfectly aligned, tiny indicators that someone had been in there while I was gone. The chilling realization hit me hardest when I found a photo of myself taken through my bedroom window at night, tucked into an old textbook on his shelf, a dark, blurry silhouette visible in the reflection of the glass. I bought a cheap motion-activated camera and set it up, only to find footage of him slowly opening my door late at night, standing absolutely still, just watching my sleeping form for minutes on end. The dread was suffocating, knowing I was never truly alone, and that his good guesses were actually meticulous, disturbing observations. I broke my lease and vanished without a trace, but every shadow still feels like his stare, and every quiet night I hear the soft creak of a door I thought was locked. I lived in a waking nightmare. The most disturbing roommate I ever had only seemed to exist after midnight, leaving behind a trail of utter dread. He was a phantom during the day, rarely seen, but once the clock struck 12, a symphony of unsettling sounds would emanate from his room. Low, guttural growls, strange chanting in an unknown language, and sometimes a chilling, rhythmic thumping that vibrated through the floorboards. I tried to ignore it at first, rationalizing it as strange sleep habits or elaborate gaming sessions. but the sheer predictability and malevolent quality of the noises eroded my sanity. One morning, I woke to find my kitchen table meticulously rearranged, salt circles drawn on the floor, and a single black feather placed precisely in the center of a burnt candle, none of which had been there before I went to bed. I started barricading my door with a chair every night, too terrified to confront him directly, feeling an unseen presence pressing against my wall as those strange sounds resumed. The air in the apartment grew heavy, thick with an acrid, earthy smell that intensified with the moon cycle, making sleep an impossibility and turning the entire space into a suffocating chamber of fear. I eventually fled, leaving most of my possessions behind, convinced that whatever entity occupied his room at night wasn't entirely human and that it had started to reach beyond his door. I still get cold sweats thinking about what he truly did in the dark.
My roommate's obsession with mirrors wasn't just vain, it was profoundly, terrifyingly unsettling. His entire room was essentially a mirrored labyrinth, reflective surfaces covering every wall, the ceiling, even the inside of his closet, creating an infinite, distorted hall of reflections where he seemed to lose himself for hours. He would spend entire nights in there, not sleeping, but just standing perfectly still, sometimes whispering to his own reflection, sometimes making these slow, deliberate, almost ritualistic gestures towards himself. I once peeked into his room after hearing a strange, low hum, only to see him meticulously painting a large, crude black X over his own reflection in the largest mirror, his face devoid of any emotion, his eyes wide and unblinking. The apartment lights would flicker erratically whenever he was engaged in these nocturnal mirror sessions, casting long, dancing shadows that made the entire space feel haunted, like an electrical current was being drained by his bizarre fixation. I eventually learned from a mutual friend that he believed his reflection was a separate entity, a doppelganger he was trying to control or appease through these rituals, a revelation that chilled me to my core. I started covering every mirror in my own room, even the small compact in my purse, terrified of accidentally catching his gaze, or worse, his reflection's gaze from his room. Moving out was the only escape from that house of mirrors, but I still flinch whenever I catch my own reflection unexpectedly. I moved in with a seemingly quiet guy who had a pet chameleon, and it wasn't long before I realized something was deeply, horribly wrong with how he treated it. At first, it was subtle. The chameleon would always be huddled, barely moving, even when food was offered, and I noticed raw, small pieces of meat left in its enclosure, instead of the insects chameleons typically eat. Then I began hearing whimpering sounds, muffled and sporadic, not from a chameleon, but something undeniably canine, emanating from his locked room late at night, followed by hushed, angry whispers. I found an empty, bloodied bird cage in the dumpster outside our apartment, smeared with what looked like dried fur and claw marks, igniting a horrifying suspicion about the true nature of his pets. My own cat, usually friendly and curious, became increasingly reclusive and terrified, refusing to enter common areas and hissing whenever his door was even slightly ajar, its fur bristling with primal fear. One night, I couldn't ignore the sounds of struggling and disparate yelps from his room, so I called the police, my heart pounding with dread as I imagined the unspeakable cruelty unfolding behind that locked door. The police found several emaciated, terrified animals hidden in his room, alongside evidence of gruesome rituals involving them, a scene so depraved it still haunts my nightmares.
I packed my bags that very hour, but the image of those tormented eyes, both animal and human, will forever be burned into my memory, a chilling reminder of the darkness that can lurk next door. I still can't shake the horror. My roommate didn't just borrow my clothes, he meticulously became me, one unsettling detail at a time. It started innocently, with him wearing my exact same band t-shirt on a different day, then ordering the same obscure coffee drink I loved, claiming he just developed a taste for it, which quickly escalated to mimicking my mannerisms and even my speech patterns. I'd walk into a room and hear him using one of my unique phrases or telling a story about an experience I had, but subtly altering it as if it happened to him, his eyes completely blank when I confronted him. The most terrifying moment was when I found a hidden folder on his computer filled with candid photos of me, not just from social media, but pictures taken without my knowledge, detailed close-ups of my hands, my specific walk, my subtle facial expressions.
He even began receiving mail addressed to Alex, my name, which he'd open without a second thought, his explanation being that it must be a mistake, but I'll hold on to it for you, as if he genuinely couldn't differentiate. My friends started making comments, asking if I'd told him everything about my past, because he seemed to know intimate details that only I would share, creating a suffocating sense of invasion. The fear was crippling, the feeling that my identity was being systematically stolen, replaced by an unsettling echo of myself existing right beside me. I moved out overnight, changed my number, and scrubbed my online presence. But sometimes, I still wonder if I am out there somewhere, living his life, just as he tried to live mine. It was a waking nightmare of identity theft.